Sometimes in our lives, we have to look below the surface to understand what is really going on. This week's Torah portion seems like it's a story about water and the lack of water and the complaints of our ancestors about not having water. But if you look a little deeper, it's really a meditation on mortality and the need we human beings have to grieve our losses. On the surface, we see a vision of the leader of the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu, seeming to lose his temper with the Israelites. Moses is fed up with the complaints of this people and goes to ask God what he should do with this unruly group now that they're complaining again. God tells Moses and Aaron to assemble the Israelites near a rock and to speak to the rock, and that God will ensure that water will come forth from the rock. But instead of speaking to the rock, Moses strikes the rock with his staff, and in this way disobeys God's instruction. And for this, it seems that Moshe will be punished by God, who says that because he did not follow God's instructions, that Moshe will not be privileged to lead the Israelites to the promised land. Now, on the surface, this seems like a clear case of divine punishment for what most of us would probably consider a fairly minor transgression on Moshe's part. And so what really is the story behind the story here? If you look at the opening of the chapter, you have this terse statement. We read, the Israelites arrived in a body of the wilderness of Sin on the first of the new moon, and the people stayed at Kadesh. And we read this statement, Vatamot sham Miriam, v'tikaver sham. Miriam died and was buried there. Now listen to the next verse. We read, V'lo haya mayim le'edah v'yikalu al Moshe v'al Aharon. The community was now without water, and so they gathered together in opposition to Moses and Aaron. Now what's missing here? What's missing is an acknowledgement of Miriam's death. What's missing are rituals of mourning and expressions of sadness and grief on the part of Moses and Aaron at the death of their sister. And the next thing we know, it's the complaint of the Israelites, the lack of water. And Moses and Aaron have to confront the Israelites in their complaining without any emotional reserves, not having had the opportunity to grieve. And I think there's a clue in the Torah as to the real reason for Moshe's anger in the response that he says to the people before he smashes the rock with his staff. Here's what he says. Shimuna hamorim, hamina sela hazeh, notzi lachem mayim. Listen, you rebels, he says. Can we get water for you from this rock? The word hamorim is an unusual word in the Hebrew. It means rebels. But those same letters, without vowels, would spell out the name of Moses' sister, Miriam. In this way, we could read it as, listen, Miriam, how are we going to get water out of the rock for these ungrateful people? Having not had the opportunity to grieve, and noting the juxtaposition between Miriam's death and the absence of water, we recognize that that absence of water reflects the absence of that life-giving source of Moshe's sister, who has been so crucial to him in his life. That, to me, is the story beneath the story here. And so what might that mean for us? How might we experience the world sometimes in a way that we think are just the objective facts that we respond to about what's in front of us, but really that our experience of what we're seeing and feeling is colored by something unnamed, maybe something unconscious that's influencing how we feel about what's in front of us? In this understanding, perhaps God is not punishing Moses, but expressing a truth about the world. A new generation will have to arise. Moses will have to confront not only the death of his sister, but also his own mortality. which will come soon. And the people of Israel will have to learn how to live without him. Sometimes lurking beneath our own anger and our strong emotions is a deep and unexpressed sorrow for what we all must lose in the course of our lives here on earth. Moshe strikes the rock, and God has to remind him and all of us that all things that are precious have to come to an end. We too must grieve our losses. May we treasure what is ours while we have it, and may we also grieve the losses that we must bear in our precious time here on this earth. Ken Yehi Ratzon, so may it be. May each of us have a good week.